question there.
Hi, good morning, Dato, Jamal and Sigve. My name is Warren and I'm from Redtone Telecommunications. From your talk just now, I understood that DG and Axiata spend millions in training your people, and I'm a big fan of yours because most of your teams that you've built are really successful. So, and more so that in future, Axiata is positioning to become a digital service provider. So my question is very simple. Would you be having your own version of apprentice to build a great team, just like how Google has and how Apple has? Thank you.
I didn't get the last sentence. If we were heading out the teams of...
Yeah, you have actually built great teams in most of the countries, many countries that you're in. So the question is, would you, moving forward, the landscapes and the roadmaps are different. A lot of companies out there are competing on the digital age, and they are all out there competing with the over-the-top players.
Right, your question?
Yeah, so the question is, would you be having your own version of apprentice to build a great team? Apprenticeship, yeah.
Apprenticeship.
If you mean to be like Tony Fernandez, no. I don't have the same kind of skills as him. But if you mean leading a team of talented people with a new age, yes, absolutely yes.
In Telenor, we have established a group that we call Telenor Digital. That group is actually a separate business unit. It's not a staff function. And this business unit is then trying to look into the crystal ball and find out how is this going to head. And they are the ones that are dealing with the over-the-top players, and they are also the ones that are developing some own services in Telenor. And this group, it's trying to bridge the gap from where we are today and where we have to be in the future. And I think what we see here is that this is not only about the content. This is not only about the spectrum or the network. This is much more about how an organization need to work if you want to win in the internet space. And when I meet some of these companies, being Google's, being some of the ones not trying to make business on the internet, also the commercial players, the way they work are so different. They take risk in a different way. They have flat structures, much more flatter than us. They move faster. They have governance which are very different. And they are driven by very different business rules and logic than we do. And I think in the future, if we want to win in this age, we basically need to transfer ourselves from telcos to internet company. And that, I think, will have a quite significant challenge on not only the way we treat people and all that, but also the way we as organization actually works.
If I can just may add, right now we have assembled about almost 300 people to do exactly similar to what Sigve mentioned. And slightly more than half actually came from outside the telco industry, from the world of internet basically. Just because we need to reinvent ourselves quite differently. And they are looking into new areas. Some are a bit of R&D, some are actually new businesses that they are creating as you speak.
Okay, number 2.
Good morning. Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Michael from Ibrahim Systems. I have one question regards to the outsourcing that you mentioned, where you can reduce costs and optimize in order to win the business. So how do you strategize outsourcing in terms of where we have challenges of shortage of talents right here? Thank you.
Well, let's start with what I never would outsource. I would never outsource the strategic thinking. I would never outsource the marketing department. I would never outsource the distribution strategy. And I would never outsource the strategic network planning, to take some of the areas. So what I would outsource was functions that I think could be done cheaper and better because of scale. So for example, I don't think there is a strategic reason anymore to own a tower. I don't think there is a strategic reason anymore to own the radio equipment. I don't think there is a strategic reason to own all your IT servers. There may not even be a strategic reason why you have to own or control your own customer service, the call centers. But the only way outsourcing works is if there is an environment around it, if you can build some scale. Because what I have found is that to outsource your technical division doesn't make sense if the only do is to do that to someone else. It only makes sense if someone can do that on behalf of several operators to build scales. Then you can build a better quality, more competencies, and a cheaper price. So again, it comes a little bit back to what Dato was talked about, the need for operators to work together. This is not something you can do on your own. And the country in the world which are leading this is India. And the reason for that is the environment that they have created in India, which built that quality, that competencies, and that scale.
I have the same answer. In fact, I think you copied my notes. Yeah. Jokes aside again, I think similar belief. However, the problem we have in practice, outsourcing has been more failures than successes in practice. Because the company that people outsource to are generally not as good as the original company sometimes. And they don't have the scale. So it also is when I have 10 customers, you only have one, which is yourself, and I can do a lot more efficiently because of the critical mass and the skills I develop over time. But in reality, very few cases have happened. So to be very frank, as much as I agree what Sigve mentioned, in practice, I'm quite skeptical whether many companies can do some of the outsourcing that we like to do.
We have a question up front.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm Ravinder Kaur, a banker. Now, a major risk that strategic industries like telcos face competing globally is political risk. A case in point, as mentioned earlier, is Telenor's exit from India and also the huge investment write-off of about $3 billion, and also Telenor's current foray into Burma, which currently is witnessing a dispute between the military-owned investment company and its joint venture with a foreign investor, which is Fraser and Neave. So my question here is, could you please elaborate what kind of contingency plans do you have and what kind of avenues do you have in scenarios where there is a lack of clarity in legal framework, policy reversals, withdrawal of licenses, economic unrest, and the expropriation of assets? Thank you.
Well, that's a very good question. We did not exit India, by the way. We did write off the 3 billion, that's right. That was prudent accounting, but we did not exit. We are still there. We bought back our spectrum and got back our licenses, and we are still there to compete with Idea. And by the way, we entered as number 14. Now we are number 6 in the market where we operate, behind Idea though. To your question, I think this is very important. And for us, this is a little bit risk and reward. And it depends how you look at it. If you look at an investment in Scandinavia today, you will have very little weightage on the political risk, on the macro risk. But where the risk is, it's the over-the-top players, it's the disruptive players in the industry. It's the price competition. It's, by the way, also some regulatory risk. And if you looked at the European big companies, mobile companies, the last 5-6 years, they have done much worse than some other companies in Asia. Not because the political risk, but because there were other risk factors which actually are bigger impact on the business than the political risk. So it's all about being able to manage that risk, I will say. The way we do that in Telenor is that I basically have 2 teams. One is the operating companies. So in Malaysia, for example, Henrik, or the CEO of Digi, he's reporting to me. So I'm responsible for that from a Telenor group point of view, as a P&L responsible. So I will be helping him with strategies, with making sure that Digi is performing the right way and so on. Then we have something outside the operating company. And that's what we call the Telenor as an investor. And I have one of my colleagues sitting here that is running that. That's what we call the business environment management. And we do that on the Telenor side, not on the Digi side. So what we basically do on this one, it's that to proactively manage media. That's the reason why I'm here today, for example. So we spend time on talking to people. We spend time on talking to media proactively, building up our story, talking about our relevance, talking about being part of the society, all that type of things. We are building a relationship with governments, with the bureaucrats, with politicians. We are building a relationship with regulators. We are trying to understand what's going on in these markets. And I think that many companies in the world are not good enough for doing this. Also, they are putting what they call government affairs or business relation management. They're putting that too low in the organization. In our company, that's reporting directly to the CEO. When Telenor entered Asia in 11, 12 years ago, everyone were in Asia. British Telecom, Deutsche Telekom, France Telecom, Finnish, Swedish, Verizon, AT&T, everyone were in Asia. All the big global players were in Asia because they all saw the growth of the Asian markets. Today, nobody's left. Only Telenor is now left with a Western heritage. You have Vodafone in India, but they are only in India. But if you look at having a regional footprint, it's only Telenor with a Western heritage. And the reason for that is exactly what we talk about now. This is not about coming into quarterly board meetings and look at the numbers and go back home. This is about being on the ground, managing these relations every day. And with that management, trying to understand what's going on. But even if you understand that, even if you manage those relations, in the end of the day, you have to be relevant. You have to show the local societies that you are here actually to develop something, not only to rip off the customers and move the money back home.
Right. We've got time for 2 more questions, the second last one being there, number 3. Yeah, it'll be on now. Oh, not yet.
Hello, Johan Khoo from Accenture. I think there's been a theme here around the digitalization of your networks and the services that you're providing, talking about the Telenor Digital, et cetera, As you transform from a voice and SMS type company into a fully 100% digital company, there's going to be a lot of pitfalls. So my question is, how are you preparing your organizations to make that transition from an analog and a voice sort of business into a fully digital services, a lifestyle company which enables Asians across Asia to live their digital lives?
Thank you.
One way of doing it is to hire Accenture.
I'll give you my card later.
It's a very good question. In fact, I have to admit this is one of the new biggest challenges that we are facing. The last 5 years, we have grown basically based on traditional strength, so to speak. And moving forward, we know for a fact that we can't do the same thing that we have done the last 5 years. And we're in an early stage. Like I said, we have a new organization looking into digital services, but that from a services perspective, right? And we have brought in people from outside, from the internet world, from IT world, to help us develop this new business. But the question is more, what do we do with the core business itself, the so-called traditional business, from a mindset, training, and all that? Like I said earlier, one of the things is looking at digital is the technology side. We're changing. That's easy in the scheme of things. But the people side, how we train them to think from a digital perspective. For example, network, how do we use crowdsourcing to manage our network, right? Just like Wave. And in a media side, how do we start looking and buy media on the new media for marketing? So I think one of the things, we have to do a couple of things. First, we have to start to inject again new, fresh people with that kind of different perspective. We need to intermingle again with people of new skill. Secondly, we need to have a proper development program now to actually train some of people to be more into this world, into these new skills, analytical skill, digital skill, and so on and so forth. But the organization itself have to be re-looked at from that angle, because bringing people in and training is one thing, but the whole culture and environment must change. And to me, that's the one that we've just embarked, to be very frank, about it. That is just, we are probably 3 steps out of maybe 100 steps. So it's an evolution, unfortunately. In that respect, we are susceptible to people who come in purely from the angle. We know that. But at the same time, unfortunately, we cannot just simply change the whole 12,000 people that we have overnight.
One last question.
Hi. Hi, I'm Yitming from Sourcebase. Just now, Sigve touched briefly about the telco going to providing financial services to the public. So now, mobile payment and also mobile wallet is very, very popular. So what a telco take on that, and how's the involvement is going to be?
Well, one of the challenges on this one is the banking regulations. And the banking regulations are very different from country to country. So, for example, in Pakistan, we own a bank, and Telco own a bank and own a license. That's allowed. Whereby in Malaysia or Thailand, that's not allowed. So the way I look at this, it's not to compete with the established banks. I don't want to compete with people in Kuala Lumpur that already have several bank accounts or several credit and debit cards. Our role is actually to take banking relations out to the unbanked. That's what I look at. And then basically be an extended arm of the banking environment out in those places where there are no branches. Because there will never be any branches there either, because it's too expensive. So what I'm looking at, it's either to do this on my own, having a license, or do it in cooperation with banks. So what I would like to then provide, it's 2-3 things. One, the easiest one is transactional services, where you are sending money over the air. Second one, it's salary disbursement, that you can get your salary actually with going to the local telecom outlet, rather than having to go to the city. And even international remittance, that you can send money abroad. Those are the easy ones. The little bit more advanced ones are balance sheet services. And then I'm talking about savings, and I'm talking about micro loans. And even on that part, I think we have a role to play. And I think there's a big upside there. And I will just urge not the telecom regulator, but the banking regulator to look on this with a little bit more optimistic eyes. Not as a threat, but more as an opportunity to actually bank the unbanked.
All right. Thank you so much. Chuang, would you like to say anything else? No? All right. Thank you very much to the gentlemen. And on behalf of the Economic Transformation Program team, we have something for the gentlemen. And what better, we'd like to invite Mohammed Shahril, the chairman of MCMC, to give them something nice. Not a fine. A token of appreciation. Here you go. Okay. Nicely put in. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Shahril, Mr. Brekke, Dr. Jamal, and of course Chuang for moderating. Thank you very much for coming to today's session. This is the last for the year. So on behalf of the Global Malaysia Series brought to you by the Economic Transformation Program.